Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly present? Not checking your phone, not juggling 5 things at once, just there, fully awake, fully alive. Most people can't remember. We live in an age where attention has become the most stolen thing in the world. We wake up and reach for our phones before we even reach for our thoughts. We scroll, we react, we compare. And by the time the day ends, we wonder where the hours went. And more painfully, where we went. A friend once told me, "I feel like I'm living on autopilot. I'm always busy, but never really moving anywhere." And you know what? That's not uncommon. Because in this modern world, distraction has become the new default. We've traded depth for speed. We've traded stillness for stimulation. We've traded meaning for noise. And yet, the Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. They didn't have smartphones, social media, or notifications, but they understood the mind's greatest trap, wasting time on things that don't matter. Seneca said it best, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." When I first read that line, it hit me hard. Because I realized, it's not time that's slipping away from us, it's our attention. And once your attention is gone, your life goes with it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, soldier, began each morning not with luxury, but with reflection. He wrote to himself, not for the world. He reminded his mind of what truly mattered, because even as the most powerful man on earth, he knew his most valuable possession wasn't gold, or fame, or control. It was focus. And maybe that's something we've all forgotten. We think we need more hours in the day, but what we really need is more awareness in the hours we already have. Because what good is a long life if we sleepwalk through it? I remember coaching a young entrepreneur once, brilliant guy, full of ideas, but he was constantly overwhelmed, always tired, always saying, "There's just not enough time." So I asked him to track how he actually spent his days. When we looked at it together, the truth was sobering. He wasn't out of time, he was out of clarity. Half his energy went to emails, notifications, and unnecessary noise. And when we stripped all that away, what remained wasn't emptiness, it was freedom. The Stoics understood that. They lived by one guiding idea. The way you spend your time is the way you spend your soul. Every distraction costs you something. Every impulsive yes steals a piece of your purpose. Every wasted minute becomes a fragment of your potential that you never get back. And yet they didn't preach guilt, they taught awareness. They said, start today, right now, take your attention back, not by trying to do everything, but by learning to do what truly matters, with full presence, with full heart. Maybe you felt it too, that restless fatigue that comes not from hard work, but from being constantly pulled in every direction. You want to feel calm, but you can't stop checking what's next. You want to focus, but your mind feels scattered, fragmented, like a browser with too many tabs open. If that sounds familiar, this video is for you, because the Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus to Seneca, all faced the same struggle. How to live with peace in a noisy world. How to protect your most sacred asset, your time, from the chaos of distraction. And they left us a roadmap, not just philosophy, but practical discipline, habits and reflections that teach us how to reclaim our focus, our energy, and our freedom. In the next part of this video, we'll explore 9 Stoic rules that can help you do exactly that. Timeless principles that remind us that every moment counts, and that the only way to live deliberately is to guard what's limited, your attention. Because at the end of the day, your time isn't stolen by others, it's surrendered by you. And the moment you realize that, you stop blaming the world and start reclaiming your life. So take a deep breath, close the extra tabs in your mind, and for the next few minutes, just be here, present, awake. Together, let's rediscover the ancient art of focus, the Stoic way. So let's begin. 9 Stoic rules. 9 ways to reclaim what modern life keeps stealing from you: your time, your focus, your peace. And the first one is simple, but it changes everything. Rule 1: guard your morning like a fortress. The Stoics believed that the morning sets the tone for your entire day, and maybe even your entire life. Marcus Aurelius would rise before sunrise, not to check messages or plan strategy, but to write to himself. His meditations weren't meant for anyone else. They were reminders, warnings, armor for the mind. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will meet people who are selfish, jealous, ungrateful, but I will not be harmed by them." That's not pessimism, that's preparation. He was building his mental shield before the world had a chance to pull him apart. You see, how you start your morning is how you start your mind. If the first thing you do when you wake up is to check your phone, you're already letting strangers, headlines, and algorithms decide your emotional state. But when you start with silence, reflection, or even a moment of gratitude, you reclaim sovereignty over your day. One of my clients, a busy executive, once told me, "My day begins the second I open my inbox." I told him, "Then your peace begins the second you stop doing that." He laughed, but after a week of starting his mornings with journaling instead of emails, he said, "I didn't realize how much of my mind I was giving away before 8 a.m. Protect your mornings. Don't let the world storm your gates before you've even woken up. Rule 2. Stop wasting energy on what you can't control. Epictetus, born a slave, crippled for life, taught one of the simplest but most liberating truths in philosophy. Some things are within our control, others are not. Most people know this quote, very few live it. We burn hours, even days, worrying about the economy, the weather, what someone thinks about us, why they didn't text back. But every time we do, we trade our focus for frustration. I remember talking with a young man who said, "I can't stop thinking about what people say about me online." I asked him, he said, "No. Can you control how you show up, what you create, how you respond?" He paused and nodded. That's the Stoic divide. Freedom doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from mastering your focus. Every minute you spend on things you can't change is a minute you lose on the things you can. And the moment you realize that, peace stops being a theory and becomes a practice. Rule 3. Learn to say no without guilt. Seneca once wrote, "People are frugal with their money but wasteful with their time." That's because saying no feels selfish, even when it's the most respectful thing you can do. We say yes to every request, every invitation, every small obligation until our life becomes a patchwork of other people's priorities. And then we wonder why we feel exhausted and empty. A friend once confessed, "I don't have time to think anymore." And I told him, "It's because you keep renting your mind out to everyone who asks for a piece of it." The Stoics taught that your time is sacred. It's the currency of your soul. Every time you say yes to something meaningless, you say no to something essential: your growth, your stillness, your focus. When I started practicing this, I realized that no doesn't have to be harsh. It can sound like, "No thank you, I'm focusing on something important right now." Or "That's not a good fit for me at the moment." Boundaries don't create distance, they create depth in there, because they allow you to show up fully where it truly matters. Remember, saying no isn't rejecting people, it's protecting your purpose. Rule 4. Treat focus as a virtue. In the Stoic world, focus wasn't about productivity, it was about integrity. They saw attention as an ethical choice. What you give your mind to shapes who you become. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." In other words, if your thoughts are scattered, your life will be too. Focus isn't about doing more, it's about doing one thing completely. To be fully present in a conversation, to write without distraction, to walk without thinking about where you'll be next. That's not time management, that's life management. I once worked with a musician who told me he hadn't written a song in months because he was too busy. When we looked closer, he wasn't busy, he was just distracted. He was always half working, half scrolling, half living. So I told him, "You don't need more hours, you just need more presence." He deleted social media for a month, and when he came back, he said something that stuck with me. I didn't become more productive, I became more peaceful. The songs came back on their own, that's the power of focus. It brings your purpose back into view. Rule 5. Practice voluntary simplicity. The Stoics lived in luxury and poverty alike, but their peace came from one timeless truth: you don't need much to live well. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." And in our world today, that craving looks different. Not just for things, but for information, validation, attention. We keep chasing more followers, more emails, more tasks, thinking we're building a life when really we're just building noise. But simplicity doesn't mean having less, it means needing less. When you reduce the clutter, physical, digital, emotional, you start to see clearly what truly matters. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, eating plainly, walking without luxury, not to suffer, but to remind themselves that happiness doesn't come from excess. What would happen if you applied that idea to your modern life? Maybe it's spending one day a week offline. Maybe it's saying no to multitasking. Maybe it's keeping your desk in order and your mind dead and clear. A minimalist life is not an empty one, it's a focused one. When your environment becomes quieter, your mind follows. And that's where real clarity begins. These 5 Stoic rules: guarding your mornings, focusing on what you can control, saying no without guilt, treating focus as virtue, and choosing simplicity are not tricks or hacks, they're disciplines. They teach you that time isn't something you manage, it's something you respect. When you start living this way, something shifts quietly inside you. You stop rushing, you stop reacting, you stop chasing what's urgent and start nurturing what's important. And that's when life begins to slow down. Not because the world gets quieter, but because you do. In the next part, we'll continue with 4 more Stoic rules, powerful principles that show how to protect your inner peace from the chaos of modern life and reclaim your most sacred resource, your attention. Take a breath. Because the next part, it's about learning how to live fully awake. You've learned how to protect your mornings, how to say no without guilt, how to simplify, and how to focus on what truly matters. But the Stoics didn't stop there. They understood that the battle for your time isn't fought once. It's fought every single day, in the small moments where your attention is tested. And that's where the next 4 rules come in. Rule 6, reflect before reacting. Every time you react impulsively, you give a piece of your focus away. A careless reply, a heated argument, a wave of envy. They all drain your time, your energy, your peace. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins with the pause, that brief space between stimulus and response. Most people think power means acting fast, but the Stoics knew the opposite. True power lies in restraint, in taking a breath before you answer, in thinking before you speak, in asking, "Is this worth my peace?" I once spoke with a man who admitted he wasted hours every week arguing online with strangers. He said, "I know it's pointless, but I can't stop." I asked, "What do you win when you win an argument with someone you'll never meet?" He smiled sadly and said, "Nothing." Exactly. Distraction often wears the mask of importance. It whispers all this matters. But it rarely does. The Stoic practice is to observe before you engage, to respond with reason instead of reaction, because once you learn to pause, you reclaim not just your time, you reclaim yourself. Rule 7, keep death as a mirror. Memento mori. If there's one Stoic idea that changes everything about how you use your time, it's this. Memento mori. Remember that you must die. At first it sounds dark, but it's not about fear, it's about focus. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. When you truly accept that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop arguing about trivial things. You stop postponing dreams for someday. I once met a doctor who survived a heart attack at 45. He told me, it's strange, dying was the best thing that ever happened to me. I asked why. He said, because before that, I was always rushing toward tomorrow. Now I live in today. That's the essence of Stoic mindfulness. Not abstract spirituality, but urgency grounded in gratitude. Every morning you can wake up and remind yourself, this day will never come again. And when you see life through that lens, the noise fades, and what's meaningful finally stands out. Time stops being something you chase, it becomes something you honor. Rule 8. Surround yourself with stillness. Seneca once wrote, nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. But in today's world, silence feels almost foreign, even uncomfortable. We fill every gap with noise, podcasts, messages, background music, endless scrolling. We're so used to stimulation that stillness feels like emptiness. But here's the truth. Without stillness, your mind becomes like muddy water, cloudy, restless, unable to reflect clearly. When you sit in quiet, truly quiet, the noise within starts to settle, and beneath it you find something powerful, clarity. One of my clients, a creative director, told me she couldn't think anymore. Every idea feels shallow, she said. I asked her to spend 10 minutes a day without her phone, just sitting in silence. A week later, she said, it was awful the first few days, but now I actually feel ideas coming back. That's what stillness does. It's not about doing nothing, it's about returning to yourself. The Stoics practice solitude, not as escape but as alignment. They believe that until you can sit quietly with your own mind, you'll always chase noise to fill the space. So take a walk without your phone, eat without distraction, end your day in silence instead of scrolling. Because peace doesn't arrive, it returns when you stop running. Rule 9. Live each day as if you've already died once. Seneca said, begin living at once and count each day as a separate life. It's a hauntingly beautiful idea to live as if you've already died once, and this is your second chance. Imagine waking up tomorrow with that mindset. How would you spend your morning? Would you waste it doom scrolling, or would you savor the sunlight coming through your window? Would you gossip, or would you finally call the person you've been meaning to forgive? Would you keep waiting for the right time, or would you start today? The Stoics believed that most people never live, they merely exist. They postpone meaning for later, always assuming there's more time left. But if you live as though life has already been given back to you, every moment becomes precious. I once met a woman who survived cancer, and she said something I'll never forget. After that, I stopped saying I have to. I started saying I get to. I get to go to work. I get to see my kids. I get to grow older. That's what happens when you reclaim your focus. Gratitude replaces hurry. You start seeing that time isn't something you manage, it's something you celebrate. The Stoics weren't against ambition, they were against forgetfulness. Forgetting how fragile this all is. Forgetting that today, this very moment, is already a gift. So live like you've died once. Because, in a way, you already have. Every time you've been through heartbreak, loss or change, and yet here you are, breathing, watching, listening, alive again. That means you've been given another chance. Use it well. These 9 Stoic rules are not commandments, they're They're compass points. They guide you back to what matters when the world tries to pull you away. They remind you that the quality of your life isn't measured by how busy you are, but by how present you can be. Because in the end, focus isn't about productivity, it's about peace. And the moment you reclaim your time, you reclaim your life. In the next part, we'll bring everything together: how to apply these Stoic rules in daily life, how to protect your attention from distraction, and how to finally live each day with calm, clarity, and purpose. You've just traveled through 9 Stoic rules, not as a checklist, but as a way back home. Home to your mind, home to your time, home to your peace. Because here's the truth, most people never stop long enough to see. You don't lose your time to others, you give it away. Every moment you spend worrying, scrolling, reacting, or regretting, that's your life quietly slipping through your fingers. And maybe that's what the Stoics understood better than anyone, that life isn't stolen from us all at once. It's taken in small, forgettable moments. Moments we trade for distraction, for validation, for noise. Seneca once wrote, "While we are postponing, life speeds by." And he was right. We live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if we'll always have later. But later isn't promised. Only now is. I once spoke with an old man in his 70s who told me something I'll never forget. He said, when I was young, I used to say, "I don't have time." Now I realize, time never left me. I just never learned how to be with it. That's what this video is really about, learning how to be with your time again. To look at your days not as something to fill, but something to feel. To treat your attention as sacred, your hours as finite, and your focus as a form of gratitude. Because when you give your attention to something or someone, you're saying, this moment matters. And if you don't choose what matters, the world will choose for you. Maybe that's why Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning, not for fame or legacy but for clarity, to remind himself that even an emperor is a servant to time. And he knew the one who controls his focus controls his fate. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of your day belongs to you? Truly, how much of it is lost in autopilot, in obligations you never chose, in things that drain you instead of build you? And what would it feel like to take it back? Imagine waking up tomorrow and not reaching for your phone first. Imagine walking slower, speaking slower, thinking deeper. Imagine looking at your to-do list and asking, does this align with my purpose or just my habits? That's not just a productivity change, that's a philosophical revolution. Because when you reclaim your focus, you don't just get more done, you become more present. You start noticing beauty again. You start hearing silence again. You start living instead of merely existing. The Stoics weren't superhumans. They were people like you and me, full of distractions, desires, duties, but they practiced something we've forgotten: awareness. They trained their minds to stay where their feet are, to act with purpose, to think deliberately, to live awake. And maybe that's what this world needs most right now. Not faster minds, but calmer ones. Not more time, but more presence within the time we already have. So before this video ends, I want to leave you with a thought. If today were the last page of your story, how would you spend the hours that remain? Would you still rush, compare, worry, or would you finally slow down, breathe and live? Because the greatest act of rebellion in this noisy, distracted world is to take your attention back. To give it not to algorithms, but to your own life. Not to chaos, but to clarity. Not to everything, but to what truly matters. If this message spoke to you, if it reminded you of the life that still waits beneath the noise, then don't let it fade when the screen goes dark. Take 1 minute today to sit quietly, to notice your breath, to feel time not as pressure but as presence. That's where peace begins. And if you'd like to keep walking this path, one of calm, focus and inner strength, I invite you to join our community. Subscribe to Stoic Awakening More, share this video with someone who feels overwhelmed, and remind them, and yourself, that time isn't something we lose, it's something we return to, because when you master your focus, you master your life. And maybe that's the real Stoic secret. Freedom isn't out there, it's in your ability to choose where your mind lives. So choose wisely, choose now, choose peace,